Alright, sweet. Now let's do our lesson quick. So, we've talked about a lot of different things so far. What just happened? Undo. Okay, we've talked about simplifying rational expressions. We've talked about multiplying, dividing rational expressions. Today we're talking about adding and subtracting rational expressions. When adding and subtracting any sort of fractions, you always need a common denominator. Right? We all agree with that? Whenever you've done adding and subtracting fractions, you've always had a common denominator. No exceptions. So when I add fractions that have a common denominator, how do I do that? Is it like multiplying where I go 7 plus 8 and 3 plus 3?
No.
No, how do I do it?
Add the numerators, keep the denominator.
Add the numerators, keep the denominator. Good. So 7 plus 8 is 15 over 3. Now, would I leave an answer like this?
No.
No, we always simplify when we can, right? So it would become 5 over 1 or just 5. If I have 7 over 4 minus 13 over 4, same thing. Do our numerator 7 minus 13. We get us negative 6, and our denominator stays the same, over 4. Well, negative 6 over 4 can reduce to negative 3 over 2. Right? We're all good so far? What about the next one? We don't have a common denominator. What do we do?
You can't.
Multiply the denominators, but by each one of them. Alright, so, yes, that is one strategy you could use. Multiply 5 by 9 and 9 by 5, right? Multiple whole fractions. Now, in this case, that's the easiest one to use. But if there's in other cases, there might be easier numbers to use, right? Sid, what are you going to say? Find the least common multiple, right? That'll give us our least common denominator. Do you have to use the least common denominator? No, but you'll have to do some more simplifying at the end if you don't. Alright? So in this case, what we're going to do, I'm going to multiply this whole fraction, 3 over 5, by 9. Right? I get 27 over 45. I'm going to do the same thing for 7 over 9, except I'm going to multiply by 5 to get a common denominator. 7 over 9 times 5 over 5. 35 over 45. Now that I have common denominators, now I can add them together. Right? So I'm going to do it over here. 27 over 45 plus 35 over 45. What should that give me? 62 over 45. And if you can simplify it, I'm not going to worry about trying to figure out how to simplify it right now, because I want to keep moving. Okay? Any questions on that? No? Yes? No? Same thing holds true for rational expressions. When adding and subtracting algebraic fractions or rational expressions, whatever you might want to call them, you must have a common denominator. Right? It's the same with any fraction. It's a rule for everything. Alright, so when we add and subtract rational fractions or rational expressions, must have a common denominator. So let's add and subtract as indicated, and then we'll simplify. 4x over 5x minus 3 plus 6x over 5x minus 3. Well, same thing. Add your numerators. 4x plus 6x will give me 10x over, and my denominator does not change. I already have a common denominator. 5x minus 3. Can I simplify that at all? No. You cannot do 10x and 5x. Why? 5x minus 3 is one whole expression or one whole term, and I can't break it up. So that's my answer. Okay? Let's look at the next one. 7 over 3x squared minus 4 over 3x squared. Do I have a common denominator? Yes, so I can go ahead right away and I can subtract them. 7 minus 4 is 3 over 3x squared. Can I simplify it?
No.
Yes, I can. Right? Because I have multiplication here. So I can take a 3 out of both top and bottom. Now remember, it leaves a 1 technically. It doesn't just become x squared. That x squared does not jump up to the numerator magically. Alright, it stays in the denominator, becomes 1 over x squared. Or you put 1 over 1x squared if you'd like. Alright, any questions so far? Okay, let's keep trying. C here. 3x plus 5 over x squared minus 4 minus 4x plus 3 over x squared minus 4. Do I have common denominators?
Yes.
Yes, so I can do my subtraction right away. Now when I do this, this subtraction distributes to both of these pieces, guys. So really it becomes 3x plus 5 minus 4x minus 3. Right? I'm subtracting 4x and I'm subtracting 3. All over x squared minus 4. That subtraction is distributed to both of those pieces in the fraction. Okay? Well, 3x minus 4x is going to give me negative x. 5 minus 3 is going to give me plus 2. Or x squared minus 4. Well, can I simplify that? Are you sure? We can factor it first. Whoa, let's factor it. See if we can simplify. Hey, the numerator, how do you think I might want to factor that? Take a negative 1 out, make it a positive x. Negative 1 times x minus 2. Ooh, that denominator, it's got a special name. Difference of perfect squares. It becomes x plus 2, x minus 2. Now, can we simplify anything? Yeah, x minus 2, x minus 2. I'm left with negative 1 over x plus 2. That's my final answer. Alright. Any questions so far? Alright, I'm going to skip the next one. So I want to keep going, so I want to make sure we get to our quiz today. Cool? We'll go through our quizzes from yesterday.
That was weird.
If they do not have common denominators, we need to get common denominators. We need to make equivalent fractions, right? So, to find the least common multiple of the denominators. If I look at the first one here, this one should be really easy. 4 over a plus 7 over a squared. What would be our least common denominator in this case? A squared. Right? We're not going to try and take an a away from this fraction. That wouldn't make much sense. We can easily add an a to the other one. So a squared. So that's my least common denominator in this case, a squared. So I need to change the first fraction. I'm going to take 4 over a, and I'm going to multiply both top and bottom by a. Because remember, what I do to that denominator, I have to do to the numerator. So it becomes 4a over a squared, and I'm going to rewrite it. 4a over a squared plus 7 over a squared. Do I have common denominators now? Yeah, so now I can add my numerator. 4a plus 7, what does that give me? 4a plus 7, right? I can't combine those unlike terms. Over a squared, and I cannot simplify it at all. Alright, we're going to skip the next one. We're going to go right to C. 8 over c squared d plus 5 over cd squared. Ooh, what's our least common denominator going to be? C squared d squared, right? If you can't see that, write them both out as multiplication. C times d. That's c squared d. C times d times d. That's cd squared, right? Do you remember how we find the least common multiple? If we circle what they have in common and write it down, and then we multiply by everything that's left over, we should get our least common multiple, which will give us our least common denominator. So c squared d squared would be our least common denominator. What do I have to do to the first fraction to get from c squared d to c squared d squared? Multiplied by d. So 8 times d over c squared d times d. It does 8d over c squared d squared. What about the second fraction? What should I multiply by?
C.
C. Good. 5 times c over cd squared times c, which would be 5c over c squared d squared. Now I have common denominators. Now I can add them together. 8d plus 5c both over c squared d squared. Am I going too fast?
Yeah.
Okay. I apologize. So, the first fraction, to get my common denominator, I need to multiply by one more d. Right? So I did that in both the numerator and denominator. I got 8d over c squared d squared. Okay? The second one, I'm missing a c. I only have cd squared. I need c squared d squared. So I multiply top and bottom by c to get my common denominator. Is that better? Okay. Just yell at me when I do that. Okay? So now that I have a common denominator, now I'm going to add them. I get 8d plus 5c over c squared d squared. Alright? Time do we have? How about this? Let's find the least common denominator and fix them, and then we won't add them together. Okay? So next one. Looking for the least common denominator, 3 over 2xy squared plus 5 over 3x squared y. Well, write them all together if you can't just see it. 2 times x times y times y. 3 times x times y. They have an x in common. They have a y in common. And multiply by everything else that's left. Times 2 times 3 times x times y. Right? That'll give me my least common multiple, or my least common denominator. Which would be 6x squared y squared. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then what would I multiply the first fraction by on top and bottom to get to here? 3x. What would I multiply the second fraction by to get to my least common denominator? 2y. Good. Now I'm not going to do that because I want to hand back your quizzes and give you a chance to look at them before we leave.
Did you put them in the grade book?
I did not yet, and I will talk about that in 2 seconds.